I'm Courtney McGinley, joined here today with Emma Goldkopf, Jake Santora, Jordan Spagnoli, and Evan Helfin. Hit show Euphoria is halting production, which has fans in quite a bit of a frenzy. So what is the deal with this delay, and what can you expect from these cast members going forward? So honestly, let's just get into it. So Euphoria kicked off in 2019, which was a while ago looking back at it. I was in my senior year of high school, which I'm a senior in college now. Wild. But since then, they've had 9 Emmys, 1 Golden Globe, 3 Critics' Choice Awards, and it's the second most popular show on HBO behind the Game of Thrones, which I think is obvious.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But right now, season 3 was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to start filming in 2024, but it's been halted till 2025. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think is up with this delay?
I don't know. So originally HBO and Sam Levinson, I believe who's the director, said in a statement that they're committed to making an exceptional 3rd season and that's the reason for the delay. They just want to make sure it's great. They encouraged their cast members to go out, seek other roles since they're in high demand, which they definitely have. But I'm a little confused, but there's always stuff happening in Hollywood. So there's got to be some reason for it.
You see, I honestly think that it is because of those actors' schedules that they're not able to film this. I mean, you have Sydney Sweeney, who has how many projects coming out this year? Zendaya, Jacob Elordi. There's tons of stuff going on. And I just think that's really going to dive into the scheduling factor when it comes to the Euphoria season 3.
And I definitely think it's probably a mix of a couple different things because, they're sitting here saying, oh, we want it to be the best season yet. That takes time. I'm sure it does. I'm sure that's just also the blanket statement they're throwing out there. But kind of like you guys were saying, these actors are in high demand. So I'm sure their schedules aren't as flexible as they might have used to. Also, we can't forget about the writer's strike that happened. I wonder if maybe that played a role into just production being a little bit slower. I feel there's probably a lot of factors that go into why there might be a delay.
I think also a big factor could definitely be the death of Angus Cloud, the actor who played Fez. And I know that he started, especially towards the end of season 2 and just in season 2 in general, he had a very more prominent character and just like presence in the show. And kind of that connection that he had with Lexi throughout was kind of like one of those mysteries that people wanted to see carry on in season 3. So it's like kind of figuring out what that's going to look like is going to be really interesting, like how they write off that character, what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the grief as well. I know Hunter Schafer has been dealing with a lot of grief as well, that his death has affected her, and I assume the rest of the cast tremendously. So that could also be something that the actors are dealing with. And since he had such a big role, it's always hard to deal with that when they can't be there.
It is really upsetting. I know I was looking forward to seeing the relationship kind of blossom, and I think it's kind of funny because he was even saying, like, way back when his character wasn't even supposed to really be on the show for that long because he was just kind of found in New York, and they were like, oh, you want to come on the show, which I think is pretty awesome. That he had no prior experience but was really filling the airwaves. But I also think that with that word exceptional, I read that each episode takes a month.
It happens.
Each episode takes a month to film because it's so intricate. It's so like the little scenes. I don't know if you guys.
This is the best episode we've ever filmed. But that's true.
Yeah, and even in Rue's episode, that whole thing when she was running in season 2, that had to have taken quite some time to film. And I think for Sam Levinson, there are big shoes to film because season 1 was a success. Season 2 is even bigger success. And with that in mind, when I was, like I said, I was a junior in high school in 2019, TikTok wasn't so prominent. So I watched that show a little later. I think it got released in June. But with season 2, social media and TikTok, it really took storm. So I feel like with that in mind, season 3, they just want so great.
No, but I think you're right. TikTok has definitely been a big part in promoting the show. And you said us that a lot with social media. the shows that do really well promoted on social media. Can we just take a minute to acknowledge the fact that we can all not stop cracking up? Emma is on the verge of tears. I didn't even know it was that funny. But yeah, social media is definitely a very big part of shows doing really well, especially when you see on TikTok. Because for a very long time, Euphoria was definitely very big on TikTok. And it was a lot of everyone's For You page. I think it really helped promote the show. And I think part of the reason maybe it's not necessarily in everyone's mind and the delays aren't a big factor to everybody is just because it's been off of TikTok for a while. It's been so many years since the seasons have come out. It's definitely going to take a lot more social media encouragements, engagement, advertisements to definitely put them back in the public eye. But I think TikTok will be a big part of, again, kind of promoting it to be what it was back in 2019.
Well, that's so true because I remember during the Super Bowl was also the season finale of Euphoria. So that was like a big thing, Maddie versus Cassie, and then the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I think I can't wait to see the energy that it brings for season 3. But in the interim, they are allowing their cast to pursue other opportunities, which I think is great. But also I read that the cast remains in a first position contract. So when Euphoria does gear up, they do have to revert back to Euphoria and pause everything else. And just like you mentioned, Sydney Sweeney, she has numerous projects. I think
tons.
at least like 18 plus.
This year alone.
She definitely is becoming Hollywood's it girl.
Absolutely.
That's what, So with that, let's kind of talk about their trajectory. Like, who do you guys think, since the beginning of the show in 2019, who has rose to fame the most? And I know that Zendaya and Jacob Elordi, they were already famous beforehand, but I think nowadays they're seen in a different light because they did play this raw role.
And you know what? That's the exact point I was going to make. You were seeing, Zendaya on like shows like Shake It Off and Casey Undercover, and now she's completely, making this way. I remember like whenever she did her Challengers interview, like she was excited to be this is the first time she's playing a woman, not a girl. And, I think that really reflects how her career has really shifted. A lot of times you see these child stars that aren't able to, transfer over to mainstream, media that we all are seeing on like a mass volume. And so I just think that's really special in itself. And then, like you said, Sydney Sweeney, just the amount of products that she's amassed since her time started on Euphoria has just been incredible.
And I kind of agree with you there. I think Euphoria really helped kickstart Sydney's career because there's not a lot of movies that she was in prior to Euphoria that are very notable to people. But now we've seen her in a lot of new films coming out and a lot of projects that she's working on. But then I also think it kickstarted maybe Jacob Elordi and Zendaya's career in a different sense of it took them from maybe a little bit more childish of roles to more sophisticated adult roles. And like you were saying, really push them into the adult film industry, not necessarily just like the kid film industry.
Yeah. And Courtney, you were saying too how Jacob Elordi and Zendaya were pretty famous beforehand, but I think Jacob's career has skyrocketed as well as Sydney's.
Sure. Really
He's been in Priscilla, he played Elvis, so that's a massive role that got so much promotion. Felix in Saltburn, which I think that was such a controversial movie as well. People were watching it, people were talking about it. Great promotion for him. My mom even loves him.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
my mom
TikTok
will send me Instagram reels. Look at Jacob Elordi.
I am
like,
so
he
scared
is
to watch
very
that
pretty.
movie.
Mom.
You haven't seen it yet?
I'm so scared to watch it.
And he's actually set to star in Frankenstein next.
I saw that.
I
Yeah.
can totally see him doing
I'm very
that.
excited
He's
for
actually
that.
taking
awesome.
over.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield was actually
saw
supposed
that.
to
Really?
be the original
Okay.
Frankenstein and the Toro's adaptation of it. But now it's Jacob Elordi. So that's
Yeah.
going to be like really
Wow.
interesting
Yeah.
too.
I can so see him as
And I
Frankenstein.
definitely think part of the reason why this show has definitely kickstarted their careers into different avenues is mostly because this is a show that we really haven't seen before. A lot of the time with TV shows, you start to see similar things. The medical shows are all the same, the law shows, the crime shows, but this was something that is definitely a little bit different. We necessarily haven't seen. It's more tailored to that young, maybe not young adult, but young adult, maybe like older teens,
Because there is
early
some, like,
20s.
really hard stuff
Yeah.
to watch in that
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
But it also kind of reminds me of Shameless in a way because the drug relation and just like the behavior, that's kind of when I started watching it. I was like, oh, that's kind of similar. But I totally get what you mean because our age, we haven't really seen something like this.
Right.
Jordan, I actually noticed the same thing too. This is a show that doesn't really fit into all the cliches that you see throughout so many sitcoms and other shows that are produced on such a mass volume. But, I think it's really, really important that like this is not a formulaic show, like you said. It's, speaking to maybe a specific generation, but it covers such broad topics in such vivid detail. I think that's what's really important and what really differentiates it from a lot of the shows we see coming out today.
I agree.
Yeah,
I definitely feel like it's showing high school like in a different light, maybe a more like mature manner, because like a lot of the things, kind of like you guys are saying, that was covered in Euphoria are very hard hitting and very just like something we're not used to seeing before,
Exactly.
especially among actors who are supposed to be playing like 16, 17, 18-year-olds. It's just like really interesting seeing kind of from those two seasons how they went about that. So I'm really interested about like season 3 and how that's going to look too. And kind of going off that too, Dominic Fike, who had a pretty good role in the show, he's not going to be in season 3. So I'm like really intrigued how they're going to write off that character. And he's also been blowing up too with his music career.
Yeah, speaking of you mentioning them being in high school, season 3 is actually going to be a jump, I think.
Yeah,
So seeing them in the real world and seeing them maybe in a college setting or even in like college and beyond, I think that's super like telling like how they evolved as a person and as a character, because in high school, obviously, you're still learning and growing, college too. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Do you guys have any predictions at all for season 3?
I don't know. I just think it's just going to resonate with people so much more, because I think college age students for the first 2 seasons could resonate with it, even though the actors were playing in high school. But now that they're jumping, I think there's going to be a lot of people that can relate to the show a lot more.
And, you wonder if maybe they did that because they're trying to fit their target demographic
Right.
more.
Yeah.
And the people that are watching the show tend to more be college students, that older adult type now, young adult, I guess, the older young adult. But so maybe that's kind of why we're seeing that jump.
Yeah.
And Jacob Elordi actually told Jimmy Fallon in an interview recently that if it was set in high school still, that he's going to have a bad back walking down that hallway again. So I definitely think that the time jump, if that's what the case is, will definitely be beneficial for the run of the show.
Yeah, I'm just honestly really excited, although we do have to wait till 2025. I think it's going to be worth it. All the cast members are saying, guys, it's going to be worth it. Don't worry. Hold your horses. But that concludes tonight's entertainment panel. But don't worry, tune in next week to hear all the latest in entertainment news and pop culture.